Educational GMAT. Your partner in your GMAT journey.
Tricky one, guys. Tricky one. Oh, yeah. Did not travel. Uh, did not travel by airplane. Okay. Yes, friends. David for everyone. Siddharth says David. Do you guys agree? Okay, all right. Now so again, I've constructed a table. This is basically, table is about people who took trips for pleasure in 1997. Let's say total of 1,000 people took trips for pleasure. Now, out of 1,000, I have taken by air as 300 and not by air as 700. Can someone tell me why? Very nice. Because the large majority of the US residents did not travel by airplane. So not traveled by air is large majority. Let's say these 1,000 people incurred a total of $1,000 towards their transportation costs. So out of these 1,000, I've taken by air 500 and not by air also as 500. Why? Why? Why have I taken these same? Very nice. Half of the total dollar amount spent on transportation was airfare. So half was airfare. So obviously the other half was not airfare. We have not assumed that everyone is going to the same place. Avnish, I have not taken, where are you saying that I've taken similar for every person? I'm saying these 1,000 people cumulatively spent $1,000. I mean, you could take it 1 million also, doesn't matter. But whatever is the figure that you take, half has to be this, half has to be that. Half by air, other half by non-air. All right. Now, with this figure, again, let's talk about transportation cost per person. So people who traveled by air, what would be the transportation cost per person? 500 divided by 300. For people who did not travel by air, what would be the average transportation cost per person? 500 divided by 700. So clearly, which one is lower, right? Notice 5 by 7 is obviously lower than 5 by 3, which means that people who did not travel by airplane had lower average transportation expenses than people who did. Are we clear? Now, the only other option that people do get confused with is option Charlie, by the way. Charlie is incorrect because it says per mile traveled. We have no information about the number of miles traveled by people who traveled by airplane versus people who did not travel by airplane. In fact, you cannot even discount the possibility that people who traveled by air traveled fewer number of miles than people who did not travel by air. That would be an assumption. So you cannot make these assumptions. No, it is average transportation cost per person, Bharat. Nothing about number of miles. I have not assumed anything about number of miles. How is 5 by 3? Total transportation cost divided by total number of people. So there is no information about per mile traveled at all. Okay, this is a very good question. Now the thing is, I, at least in kind of mathematical type of questions, I like to go with tables. But honestly, you would not have time to construct a table in the actual exam. So I have the luxury to do that just because it helps in understanding. But then in the exam, these things have to come to you rather than absolutely, you have to do it mentally. Yes, you cannot construct a table, Avnish, and that's just not a possibility at all. 2 minutes per question, a maximum 3 minutes is what you have. So you cannot look at. We are constructing these figures in our mind and in my mind. Yes. So, so yeah, yeah, large percentage of residents. So let's look at this. Large proportion of dollar amount. Okay, so the thing is, half of the total dollar amount was airfare, while less than half used air. Correct? So that should give you a clue. Half of the dollar amount spent was airfare, even though less than half of the people used air as a mode of transportation. So that should give you a clue outside of this table also that clearly people who traveled by air per person incurred more expenses. Yeah. So you actually see, yeah, I mean, actually, most of the other choices can be very quickly eliminated. Most of those who traveled by airplane did so because the airfare to their destination was lower than the cost of other. We've been given no information about this at all. Why did they choose airfare, right? This is what Alpha is answering. Most of those who traveled by airplane did so because other means of transportation were unavailable. Again, very easily eliminated. For that reason, I said that generally Charlie versus David is what it boils down to. But then Charlie can be quickly eliminated because there is no information about the total number of miles traveled.
Sir, could you also speak about what E is saying? I mean, what
Edward,
option
okay, all
E?
right.
Yeah.
Let's look at Edward. Those who traveled by airplane spent about as much on average on other means of transportation as they did on airfare. What do you think about this, guys? What do you think about this? Yeah. So, Harsh, where are you from, by the way? What's your native?
Um, Sorry, I'm from Calcutta, but
Calcutta. Okay. So,
yeah.
Calcutta would not work, but let's take Kharagpur. let's take Kharagpur. Suppose now I am in Bangalore and I have to, let's say, go to Kharagpur. All right. Now I'm assuming that there is no airport in Kharagpur. So what would I do? From Bangalore to Calcutta, I take a flight, and from Calcutta to Kharagpur,
Correct.
what would I do? What would I do? Avail other modes of transport.
Correct.
Correct. So I spend some amount on airfare, and I also spend some amount on other modes of transport, which in this case
Correct.
would be going from Calcutta to Kharagpur.
Hmm.
Right. So what was the split between these two? My expenses on airfare versus my expenses on, let's say, train transportation from Calcutta to Kharagpur. So that kind of a split is not provided at all in the argument.
But sir, in the
Go ahead.
second sentence, this talks
Yes.
about half of the total dollar spent on transportation was
Half of the
airfare.
total, yes, yes, yes. Half was
Uh,
spent on airfare, correct.
yeah, so this talks about the entire USA, or so
Entire
I
US,
can't take it.
yes.
Yeah, so but if I look it from an individual lens, maybe E is holding true.
E would not hold true, Harsh. Why do you say Edward would hold true? Tell me again.
No, no.
Now, hmm,
If I take, so for example, if I was looking at it from an entire expense the country is doing on transportation expense,
yes,
then
yes.
100% E is not holding true.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say if I take it from an individual lens,
Hmm.
that I am spending, let's say, half of dollar amount on transportation uh,
Oh,
as an airfare. So I got a little confused there.
okay. Now, I'm actually just trying to understand this from your lens, by the way. So this is clearly the statistics given for the entire US in 1997. Uh, are you clear about this, first of all? Harsh, are you there? Oh, I think we've lost Harsh. Harsh, are you there?
Hello, hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I am sorry. There was some friction in my network.
Yeah, Siddharth, go ahead. Go ahead. Correct. But yeah, Harsh, what was your viewpoint? What Harsh is saying is that he does understand how David is true if we consider the entire US. What he's saying is that on an individual level, Edward is true. So that's where I'm having slight problems understanding. What do you mean by individual level, Harsh?
So I got a little confused when
Hmm.
while going through the
Hmm.
question.
Hmm.
Um, so so when I read transportation expenses accounted for a large portion of total dollar amount spent on trips for pleasure by
Okay,
residents in the
okay,
US,
okay, 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 okay.
etc.
Got it, got it. So let's be
So
very clear about the
so
first
correct.
sentence
So I
as well.
thought that
Hmm.
the transportation expense is an individual expense that I am doing as a traveler.
Correct, but now when a person spends on trip, what are typically the two major expenses? Transportation and stay, right? Lodging, correct? So this is where it says that transportation expenses accounted for a large proportion. So in my example, right? In my example, uh, I mean, I've just taken 1,000 as transportation costs incurred by these 1,000 people. So obviously, apart from $1,000, which these people incurred on transportation, maybe they also incurred $800 total in hotel expenses, for example. That is something that is not in scope of this question at all, by the way, right? Notice transportation expenses accounted for a large proportion of total dollar amount spent on trips. So spending on trips again, as I said, would entail two primary expenses. One is transportation expenses, other would be hotel. So hotel expenses would be completely out of scope for this question. Now, with this understanding, let's proceed further now, Harsh. Yes, let's continue. Yes, what was your observation?
Yeah, so basically, sir,
Hmm.
what I was trying to understand, so
Hmm.
essentially um in my head, I frame the question on an individual traveler. So let's say,
Mm-hmm.
for example, you and I, we both are
Yes.
travelers,
Okay.
okay, and maybe my overall expense could be, let's say rupee 100, and yours could be, let's say 20, however, or vice versa.
Hmm.
And it says that out of my 100, I am spending, let's say, on trans a large, and that large could be anything. That could either be 30 or it could be 50.
Hmm.
So that way, and
Let's write it down. Let's write it down for you. Let's write it down for you. Okay. So you spent total rupees 100. Okay. Out of which, let's say rupees 60 is on transportation. Am I with you?
correct, correct,
And
correct,
so rupees 50 would be on hotel. 40, sorry,
correct,
on hotel. Okay.
correct,
Then go ahead.
correct,
Go ahead. Then.
correct. And then you go back to the question once.
So
Uh,
then, yeah, then this will get erased.
oh, okay, okay. So
But I,
basically, and then the second sentence says
yes, yes.
that half of it is spent on airfare, some something along these
Uh,
lines.
okay. Okay, okay. But actually, this half of it. So, okay. So now I think you also mentioned correctly that, by the way, the statistics are for entire US. But if we don't consider US, if we are only considering you, uh, considering the individual will not work here, honestly. But anyway, if we consider just you, then what it's basically saying is that if you incurred 60 rupees on transportation, Harsh, then out of that 60 rupees, rupees 30 was spent on airfare
Correct.
and
And 30 other mode.
other mode, let's say train,
Correct.
which
And
would
then
go
you
back to,
visit
go ahead.
Edward. If you visit the option Edward,
Hmm.
this holds true.
Oh, now I get this. Now I get this. Okay, 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 okay. Yeah, so correct. So in this entire figure, what we've not considered is this particular line at all,
Hmm. Correct.
right? See, if we are just taking on an individual level, then we've not taken this into account at all.
Got it.
So yeah, so in that sense, it cannot be taken at the like just for one person. Yes.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the third sentence essentially becomes irrelevant.
Yes.
So we need to
Redundant.
consider it end to
Yes,
end.
of course. Yes, yes, yes.
Got
Avnish,
it.
what was your observation? Total dollar amount and the total population. Yes, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So
sorry.
the only thing there was with total dollar amount
Hmm.
was that it could be my total dollar amount as well of the entire trip. So I don't know. I mean, my intuition went there, and I discarded the large part of US
Yeah,